Two people you hate just talk to each other. Bassam Youssef, a comedian, and Candace Owens, I don't know what description should I give for her, a podcaster, let's say, have talked to each other 2 weeks ago. They've discussed many things. I mean, I don't mean to poison the well already, but they joked about Holocaust numbers. They joked about Erica Kirk being involved in the murder of her husband. They talked about, I mean, what else did I write up? Oh, they of course talked about how Jews actually make everybody hate Muslims. Um, what else do we have? Oh, and of course, Jews control American politicians. I mean, we cannot leave that one out. Today, we'll go through some of the clips from the podcast they did. We'll cover it today. Welcome to the reality show. Joining me today are Jonathan Honig, Iyar Reichel, and Michael Kaufman. Thank you guys for joining me today. And I want to prolong going into the clips as long as possible. So, Michael, any opening thoughts from you? If you had a chance to check out some of the podcast or
Yeah. I mean, I watched as long as I could before I had severe nausea and et cetera. It struck me that the one problem with social media and all this kind of stuff is that people can amplify this remarkable hatred and utter stupidity. I mean, it's the hatred part is one thing, but when it's based on complete fabrication, not a fact under there, I would love to do medicine on these kind of people that with the same use of facts as they do on description of social situations and so on. It is truly amazing, and to brag about who's a better anti-Semite and who made it's really a set of despicable people. The fact that they have followers is worse, but we know there's plenty of that around. I think it should be a wake up call to normal people that we can't keep abiding this. I mean, this cancer will continue to grow, and if we don't put up and say that these people don't deserve a medium, we're not going to restrict their speech, but we have to make it very clear that those who follow people like this should be shunned, and they should not be involved in our everyday lives. Nor should, frankly, I don't believe we should employ them, and so on. Those are my thoughts.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting that somebody like Candace Owens or even Tucker Carlson are still on YouTube. Like people have been banned from YouTube or from social media. Like people like Nick Fuentes are completely ostracized from like any sort of major social media, and I think rightfully so to a large extent. And I'm just thinking, okay, how much different are like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson from them, or even somebody like Bassem Youssef, if you really listen to what he actually is advocating for. But yeah, any opening thoughts from you?
They're just despicable.
Okay, Jonathan?
Well, they're despicable and they're also nothing new. I mean, this whole notion, for example, of questioning, was it really 6 million Jews that died in the Holocaust or was it 4 million? I mean, the kind of throwing that out there. I mean, that is the same old anti-Semitic trope you've been hearing since the 1950s. There's a National Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. I urge both Bassam and Candace to go there. All the evidence is there. All the atrocities are well documented, but there's money to be made here, and I think they appeal to a wide swath of the audience that's very disaffected and looking for someone to blame. And they come across a group that's always been blamed throughout history, the Jews. And for Candace, that means page clicks.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll go into that clip first. And I'm wondering if these people like ever go to, like you said, like a Holocaust museum. Like for me, Auschwitz is like a 3 hour drive away from me. Like I'm pretty much right here. I went there twice from school, and yeah, that. Well, let's actually take a look at a clip so we can. Or Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it's all been documented. Everything they bring up has been documented. The question, was it really this? This is all documented. This is not fabrication. This is, them throwing out the just asking questions to appeal to an anti-Semitic, I guess, hunger or something that exists within society right now. So let's roll the tape and discuss.
This goes back to what I was saying about the Bolsheviks. I mean, one episode we were speaking about even the things that they told us about World War II and the things, and they panicked. And it was hilarious because then a couple of months later, Auschwitz Museum comes out and says, the stuff that was said about Dr. Joseph Mengele, a lot of it was made up. He never did these things. He was actually, before all of this, a respected doctor. Auschwitz Museum put this on their website. And
they changed the number from 4 million to 1 million overnight.
I mean, there's been a lot of changes, but you're not allowed to know history or how the numbers change. And I was grateful to sit down with Norm Finkelstein, and I asked him about that question, because he's like, my parents, one of his parents was in Auschwitz, and the other parent was, I'm blanking on which of the other camps they were in. And he said, he acknowledges it. He's like, yeah, of course. He said, my parents told me some people were taking the tattoos off and some people were putting them on. People that I believe were laundering their names. I spoke to him about this, making themselves victims. And they actually were the perpetrators of a lot of the crimes that were happening against Christians, mass murder of Christians, which we're not allowed to talk about. The number one victims of World War II were not Jews, it was Christians. And when you say that, they get so angry because they have worked so hard for decades to manipulate people in the classroom to believe that the only victims that have ever existed in history were Jews. And that's just on its face false, and it is a lie. And we have to do a better job of getting out the truth.
And by the way, I wouldn't even mind if that was the story.
Yeah.
But the fact that they used that in order to inflict Holocaust on other people.
Crazy.
Palestinians who had nothing to do with, okay, Holocaust, 12 million Jews were killed. Whatever. But we didn't do that. The Palestinians weren't part of it.
Yeah, 6 million, 12 million, it's all the same for him. Okay, they said a lot of things that I cannot even summarize. So first Candace starts talking about how the things they told us, there's always the ominous day. Like, who told you? Like, who are you listening that told you this? She talks about Mengele, and then he's been like respected doctor before. He joined the Nazi party in 1937. You mean he was respected by the Nazi party? He joined SS in 1938. I'm sorry, but what are we talking? Like, even if he didn't do all the bad stuff that we like say he did, how does that make it better in any way? Bassem Youssef talks about the 4 million, which I had to even Google, like, okay, where is this number from? Apparently the 4 million number is this was the Soviet estimation when they took over Auschwitz, and that was their estimation for that specific camp. Early on, then they realized, okay, it was actually 1 million, and 6 million was the overall number. So he's mixing up numbers also. He's not mixing up numbers. He's purposely evading what he's actually saying. Then Candace talks about how you're not allowed to know. Who's like stopping you? Like, you're asking this question. ChatGPT is available. You can go look up documents. Like, Nazis kept good records. We know a lot of the stuff because of the records they themselves kept. And then she talks about mass murder of Christians, which is, again, like a complete wrong way to think about it, because Jews were actually persecuted during World War II, meaning millions were killed because they were Jews. I mean, technically, you could say more Christians died because, the Soviets and the Germans were all Christians, but they weren't killed because they were Christians. Like, when you talk about Christian persecution during World War II, we are mainly talking about priests who opposed different regimes and were persecuted because of that. We are not talking about Christians being killed because they are Christians. But with all that summarized, yeah, Jonathan.
Was it my ears, or did she say Bengala, not Mengele? Did anyone hear that?
I heard Mengele.
Yeah, all right. Well, I guess I'll let that slide. But I mean, for me, as I said, it was kind of a tired old rehash of questioning what are well-documented facts. As I said, Daniel, the Nazis were extraordinary about that, and also minimizing, and citing Joseph Finkelstein, which took about a 2-second Wikipedia search to understand who this guy is. He is someone who, according to Wikipedia, compares the plight of the Palestinians with the horrors of the Nazis. So he's all but said Jews are Nazis as it is. So it's no surprise that Candace goes to him, a Jew, for her POV.
Yeah, by the way, Norman Finkelstein is a Middle East historian that doesn't speak Hebrew or Arabic, for that matter, which is interesting way to be a historian of a specific region. But Michael, any thoughts on like the 6 different things?
Well, I love the notion that Mengele was a respected doctor, and then did some of the, not all of the things that he's been accused and documented of doing. I mean, everybody that is a criminal who's an adult, regardless, was a generally either regarded or respected person until they were not. It is remarkable. You really understand the level. She knows what she's doing. The people that follow her have to be truly moronic, and obviously corrupt. And this is the typical. I mean, to me at least, the entire anti-Semitic, anti-Western, it all continues. It's anti-success. It's anti-meritocracy. It's basically an envy blame game. Just saying, if these people or groups didn't exist, I would be okay and I'd be successful. And if it weren't for them, my life would be good. And this is a way to make these poor, I guess she appeals to disenfranchised or semi-disenfranchised groups. It's a completely sick way of looking. And what it does is exactly what UNRWA did, which is to perpetuate the problem. All it does is make the problem bigger, because if you want to start with the Jews control the government, the Jews are bad, everything's terrible, and everybody's against us, you will fail in your life, you will fail for your generations following you. There is the other option you have, which is to get off your butt and work hard and overcome obstacles. And most of the time in free countries like Israel and America, you can make it, at least reasonably well. And frankly, I still believe that's most people in these countries. But then we have this disenfranchised group who now has a really nice outlet for the blame game and the overthrow of the government to be replaced by, I guess, people like Candace and Tucker and maybe a comedian as well.
Yeah, and again, the way I mean, the Mengele example is like the most insane. Like is she straight up trying to like whitewash the whole Nazi regime? Like you have people. I'm thinking of people like Albert Speer, who was the war and armaments like minister during the Nazi regime in later parts of the year of the war. When he was at the Nuremberg trial, he got like 20 years because he was like involved within the government itself. But he, at least I don't think he did like any war crimes that we know of or that were brought up at the Nuremberg, right? And he still got 20 years because you're part of a Nazi like regime that is like waging war on the empire. Like Mengele, let's say he didn't do any heinous crimes at all. He was still part of the Nazi party that he joined willingly. He was still part of the SS that he joined willingly. Like he was, I think he was like a second lieutenant. He had like a relatively high position within the SS that we are talking about. And of course, the worst part is he escaped all of that. He managed to flee Germany and didn't actually get punished for all his crimes. He like lived in Argentina. Yeah, any thoughts you have either on like specific Mengele or the other parts, the Auschwitz, the numbers, the mass murders of Christians, and something we didn't mention is that Bassam Youssef then said, Jews are trying to use the Holocaust to cause Holocaust on other people.
Yeah, so I have a lot to say about that, and I think Candace's words and praises of Mengele is a very interesting and good example of what's going on. So first of all, Mengele, he was a doctor, medical doctor, and he did crimes against humanity and crimes against science. He basically tortured people. He did horrible, basically torture games on victims in the name of science. And that's why I call it also a crime against science, because you basically go ahead and just torture people entirely for no purpose, and you brand it as science experiment. It's just a pure sadistic, horrible thing he did, torturing people alive. And the fact that she chose to mention him and whitewash this particular monster of a man is very interesting, and it begs the question, what is her motivation? And when I just look at the events, she used to be at Ben Shapiro's show, and they've had a beef and they split off, and then she started to go more and more into madness. it really seems like a vendetta and an inferiority complex, taking her into the fringiest ideologies. And what is the crazy fringe ideology she adopted? Well, it's classic Marxist victim identity politics. It's classic Hegelian tyrannical, evil, collectivist, and altruistic views, where the root of your morality is victimhood. The most essential things in her morality is the victim game, which is a horrible morality. It's not a morality of becoming a good person, of being a hero, of promoting good. It's about who. It's a pagan beauty contest of victims, and she's mad because the Jews historically and factually have been victims all over time. In huge percentage of Jews have been persecuted this whole time. Now, look, when you look at history, people enslaved and tortured each other all the time. Like the Jews in particular, yes, they have been persecuted a lot, but everybody has been persecuting everybody. And basically, from the fall of Rome and the rise of the Catholic Church in the Dark Ages, and up to the days of the Enlightenment, where basically those ideas formed the United States of America that changed the whole world. Having said that, she's very mad. She hates the Jews, but the Jews are factually huge victims, and according to her worldview, it's like it's cleaning them up morally. So she has to play this game as if the Jews are lying to the world that they are victims, and the true victims are the Christians or the Palestinians or whomever is not Jewish. The Muslims are victims of the Jews. She does all those things, and she whitewash Mengele for that reason, so she can play the victim game and screw the Jews. It's complete madness, and it also begs the question, like, how do people buy that crap? How do people believe that? How does she manage to convince them? Is that talent? Is that charisma? No. It relates to the point that Michael Kaufman had brought up, but not from the point of the speaker, but from the point of view of the listener. The people who buy into that, these are people who are willingly doing that. They're not people, open-minded, want to learn, want to know, want to expand their horizon. These people that are frustrated and they're in a really bad position, and it's their own fault. It's for people who going into this stuff to get approval for their sick worldview. It's people with the mentality of a victim. It's people that are ruining their own life. Instead of living a life of a hero, instead of trying to build yourself something good, they're trying to get away with living everything. They ruin everything they touch because they have such sick ideologies. And then they adopt this like collectivistic, mystic worldview of a victim, keep ruining their life and looking for some other entity to blame for their wrongdoings. And then they find people like Candace that basically enforce their excuse, enforce the rationalization, and telling them basically all of the bad thing in your lives is not because you are a shitty person. It's because of the secret demonic sect of Jews running the world behind the scene and ruin it and using you to do whatever they do. And like, this is so backwards because there is an evil power in this world. And the evil power in this world is the sick, perverted, anti-life ideology that Candace champions, which is collectivism and altruism and mystics. And that's what she does. That's her life. And she's like, she's a classic villain trope. She went full villain. It's just, as I said, it's despicable.
Yeah, and I do want to... Sure, Jonathan.
I just want to mention one thing. I mean, it seems like on so many issues, from a student of objectivism's perspective, we're going backward on abortion, on trade, and certainly on anti-Semitism. I mean, these debates about how many were killed, as I said, were settled in the 70s, and by the time you got to the 80s and 90s, it was understandably and rightfully taboo to be anti-Semite, to be an anti-Semite. But Yair, to your point, I mean, there's an audience for it now. And to me, what's most ironic is, if you watch Candace on social, she always kind of retreats into the Christ is king, Christ is king. So she retreats into her own, tribe or religious identity group. And my saying, trademarketing it now, the more religious, the more suspicious. And Candace's love for her own religion and love for Christ, to me, is the best evidence that she's a bullshit artist.
Yeah, and I do want to bring up, because ER mentioned the Muslims a little bit, and we'll watch the next clip about it. And I would just only finish on Mengele because ER said it, and somebody brought in that there are no, what was it, something like, there's no such thing as crime against science, there is only crime in the name of science. No, there is such a thing as bad science. The fact is, Mengele's research is unusable. Like, we couldn't make use of any of it because he didn't use control groups. He didn't even properly keep records. In many ways, as ER said, it was straight up torture. There was no medical reason behind it. Not to mention, even when it comes to doing actual science or medicine, getting consent from the people you are doing it with is usually an important part of actually getting good results, and not just like we said, straight up torturing people. But let's watch another clip. And I want to do... There we go.
I have a couple of issues with Charlie. I do agree that he was kind of starting to wake up towards the end. He kind of falsely claimed that if you're a Jew going to an Arab neighborhood in Jerusalem, you're going to be stabbed. He said close to his death, Muslims, they throw gay people out of high buildings. Now there's no high buildings in Gaza anymore. Stupid Muslims. And that hurt a lot of Muslims seeing that clip. And then the day before he died, he tweeted saying that Islam is the sword the left is using to slit America's throat.
But he did think that the threat of Islam, he totally believed that.
Oh, yeah. He also had very negative ideas about this.
Yeah, I was just accepting everything that people that I thought were my friends and were Zionists were telling me. It's literally a psychological operation.
So again, first they talk a little bit about what Charlie Kirk believed in, because he was generally or decent on some things. He of course recognized the threat of the religion of Islam, as everybody should, which Bassam Youssef of course cannot accept, and he's talking about how it hurt people to call out the things as they are, like the fact that in Gaza they were throwing people off the buildings, and what I mean, what specifically Candace talked about, what was it, something like what Zionists told her about Muslims. So that's the only reason why people in the West or anybody has a problem with Islam as religion is because of Zionists, which again is a simply stand-in word for Jews. And something I was wondering about, because I saw, so this clip specifically I found on X from a user Muslim Mom, and even when I looked up on YouTube, I actually found a lot of the commenters are Muslims. And I'm wondering to what extent is actually both the Candace audience and Tucker Carlson audience, to what extent are they Muslims? Because if you think about it, like Muslims in the West, or even let's say English-speaking Muslims, for a long time they probably didn't have like a big social media person to follow, right? Unless they were Muslim. But when it comes to people like Candace Owens, when it comes to people like Tucker Carlson, I mean, a Muslim finds themselves at home. And I mean specifically like anti-Semitism, because again, not every single one, but in broader Muslim culture and broader Arabic culture, anti-Semitism is a very common thing. Not in the way of like in the same way like racism is like a common thing if you're from like a really rural part of America, or a few decades back, right? A certain amount of it is backwardness, and certain amount of it is like it being a cultural thing. So I mean, Michael, any thoughts on any of this?
Well, one of the beauties of not teaching history to kids is that if you don't learn history, you don't have to admit any of it or even think about it, because you assume that every idiot out there who says anything has researched it more than you have, and if he's very convenient, and as the Pennsylvania Dutch, the Amish like to say, those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. And as Jonathan said, we are repeating it. We're going backwards. The comments that she made about Muslims, I mean, let's remember, first of all, 9/11. which, as I've said many times on the show, is not taught. This is 9/11, 2001, and a lot of our kids were born after that, and it's not taught in schools because it might offend the Muslims. But it was perpetrated by Muslims in the name of Islam. Full stop. That's what was done. They flew airplanes into buildings and killed masses of people. That's what they did. They were happy about it. They would continue to do that if we let them. They would like to do it. There were many attempts before 9/11/01, and there were a lot of successful attempts afterwards, which, of course, our liberal press doesn't like to talk about because it ruins the ideas out there. 90% or higher of the terrorist events across the entire world are perpetrated in the name of Islam. The comment that he made that there are no tall buildings left in Gaza, as if that, the Jews should have left the tall buildings up there, because then we could continue to push the gays off of the tall buildings. And they should be offended that there's no more room to put, we don't have any good places to push the gays off of anymore in Gaza. I mean, what morons? Listen, this is stuff that you hear on a school playground at 6th grade, not this bad, but this kind of idiocy. And it is remarkable. My last comment is, one of the things that people like Tucker and Candace have decided to do, because they started off being reasonable people, a lot like she claims Mengele was, ironically, and they just keep getting crazier and crazier. Tucker Carlson was one of the top commentators and spokespeople on Fox News. He was definitely right-wing, but he was fairly normal. And he oftentimes had the most coherent, rational arguments at a time when America was really struggling because our news had gone so far left. And he got booted from Fox for getting too crazy. And he continues to this day to get crazier and crazier. And Candace has done that as well. I suppose what these people do is try to figure out what historical figure can we pick on to pretend that they were normal or reasonable. And I guess she's gotten so far crazy, and I don't know that it's even left anymore, because I think it's completely nuts, that we can start to defend Mengele. Not any reasonable human being on the planet, not a single one, would defend this monster. And as a medical doctor, it's a disaster to even consider that he was a doctor. They just learned really good ways to torture people and do terrible, terrible things. But that's what I think has happened. I think it's happened with Tucker as well. And I think they're going to continue to get more and more psychotic, because those sound bites apparently are what sells. And I don't want to stop them by telling them not to have free speech, but I do think we need to educate our kids better and tell the truth. Muslims commit the most terrorist events on the planet. Jews have the highest number of anti-Jewish violent and non-violent events on the planet. We're one of the smallest minorities. I'm not a victim. I'm Jewish. I refuse to be a victim, just like the entire Israel and the Israeli Defense Force refuses to be. And we need to use education and shows like this to defend against these absolute psychopaths.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I mean, you said Tucker was kicked out of Fox News because he went crazy, but it's actually not fairly true, because Tucker Carlson was kicked out of Fox News for lying, like talking about like media, like he was straight, like there was during the 2020 election, there was a bunch of Fox News hosts were saying the Dominion voting machines were like faking results, and the Dominion company sued Fox News over those claims, including Tucker Carlson, because and they were paid out $1.6 billion in damages. Fox News had to pay out, and afterwards they kicked Tucker because he was lying on news. So this is this is the kind of caliber we're dealing with. But yeah, any thoughts on? I mean, even that, like Bassem Youssef started talking about how towards the end, Charlie Kirk was actually switching on his view on Muslims, which as I've seen from the comments under the video, the implication was that, Charlie Kirk was criticizing Muslims this whole time, and he went fine, but then he started criticizing Jews, and then something happened. Like, well, let's actually play this clip, and then I'll go to you guys, because it's a short clip, and I think it fits well.
Kirk? Oh.
What do you think about Erica Kirk?
Would I get sued?
Throw it in the pile.
Oh,
of course you will.
I don't want to say anything that's controversial. She did it, but I don't want. She was on it.
I don't want to get into.
I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
She's part of it.
I can't wait till that gets clipped.
She's a plant. But
So yeah, they seem to be laughing a little bit too hard on this statement, again, saying that Erica Kirk has been involved in the murder of her husband, and that is oftentimes connected with the idea that Israel was involved in the killing of Charlie Kirk.
Well, this comedian has two types of joke. He has the jokes of him denying reality and trying to claim the opposite and using his comedian persona as a shield from criticism over being a liar. And he has the wishful joking, as if he jokes his heart wishes and exposes them. Like, he says, 6 million, 12 million Jews. It seems like he wished 12 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. And here as well, like he enjoys, fantasizing about how it's actually Erica. Like, I don't even want to say it, like this horrible accusation for such an innocent person. It's really horrible. And once again, this is not just just like they're evil, so they blame America or whatever. Like, the reason they are doing that and throwing this Israeli conspiracy, it's basically it's a cult leader methodology of connecting unrelated traumatic events to create this paranoid worldview to basically install every message they want to. Like, once again, they have this nihilistic, evil, anti-Jewish worldview, and this is the people that are where they're aiming at. They want this kind of sick, perverted people to come to their show and hear people basically enforcing their sick and evil worldviews. So as I said in the beginning, that this whole episode could be summed up to one more and about them, and that is despicable. Just ugly, disgusting. It's really painful to see, and it is an indication, because they have so much views. It's an indication of how rotten the culture is right now, and that so much individuals have gone into this villain arc, unfortunately, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, when it comes to, I guess this we would describe sort of as an edgy joke. I like edgy jokes, but the thing that is edgy about them is we don't actually believe in that. When I make a racist joke, it's funny because I'm not racist, because the idea of racism is ridiculous, and that is what's funny. But Bassam Youssef and Candace Owens, Candace Owens did many shows, talking about how, Erica Kirk might be involved in something, how Israel, how Mossad might be involved in something, and then they joke about Erica Kirk being involved in something. That's not funny. When anti-Semites make anti-Semitic jokes, that's not funny, because they are anti-Semites. We don't laugh with people who are actually racist on racist jokes, because they are not just jokes. They mean to, signal something like, oh, we are of the same group. It's a type of dog whistle.
And like you, Daniel, I liked Lenny Bruce from the tapes I heard growing up, or guys like Andrew Dice Clay in the 80s and early 90s, people who were a little bit more edgy. But, that type of humor of, throwing out there that maybe Erica Kirk, and look, I'm certainly no fan of Erica Kirk or Turning Point, but to put it out there that, she herself was involved in some kind of a scheme to have her own husband killed. It's so obnoxious. It's so malevolent. I mean, is there kind of no low? And regarding the previous clip and the one in which the question was, well, Do all Muslims throw gays off of buildings? Well, not all Muslims, but that is something that happens in countries that are led by radical Islam or territories that are governed by radical Islam. At the same time, they fail to mention that Tel Aviv has by far the biggest gay population in the Middle East. And in fact, Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a huge gay pride parade every year in Tel Aviv that takes over the whole city. So, I mean, facts are stubborn things for Bassam and Candace. You know, Israel is a society which all are welcome, including gays. And a lot of Muslim countries are societies where those same gays are executed, i.e. thrown from buildings, just as Charlie Kirk said.
Yeah, and with that, when he, talks about being a comedian, I actually have a clip from a different show he just did. This was on Piers Morgan, but I think it fits well here.
Somebody's Bassam is never enough for you. You see, it doesn't matter how critical journalists are about Israel. It will never be enough for you because you want the right. You want the right to suggest that Charlie Kirk was the subject of a hit job by Israel. You want the world to think that. That's why you said what you said, and that's why when I asked you, you went, Netanyahu says it wasn't him.
By the way, I'm not even the only one. People are actually, here's the thing. If you continue lying to your people, right? I'll tell you what. Let's call me a conspiracy theorist, right? Yeah. Call me someone who is illogical. Call me whatever you want. If your government continues to lie to you consistently, this is where conspiracy theorists thrive. If you're not transparent,
why do you want to be one of them?
If you want to cover, no. I'm not saying I'm one.
Why?
Of them.
Why float a mad conspiracy theory about Israel?
Because it's the internet, and I'm a comedian.
Okay, but it's not that funny, though, is it?
Actually, a lot of people thought it was very funny.
You have millions, I'm sure they did, but millions of people follow you, and you want them to think that Israel was behind the murder of Charlie Kirk. And you call me an ill-informed, irresponsible journalist.
Yeah, because I'm not a journalist. I'm a comedian. Remember, I'm a clown. I
don't think you're a clown.
That's what I do. Oh, I'm a clown. Actually, I'm a comedian. Comedians are actually overpaid.
But I think you're somebody who is so blindly hateful of all things Israel that you'll even promote a conspiracy.
So yeah, here we have it again, right? All right, but I'm not I don't hold accountability for the things I say. I have no absolute influence. I might have like millions of people who follow me, but I have no influence over them. I'm incapable. I'm just a funny guy. I'm just a comedian. And it's like, no, you actually believe in that. The part of comedy is, I mean, some part of it is based on reality, but you make things up. But no, you actually believe in that. Like when he had one stand-up where, and I think they played it in the show, where he joked about the anti-Semite of the year, right? And he said he should have won it, but unfortunately Candace Owens won it because of DEI. And by the way, that's a pretty funny joke. But again, it's like you cannot have both of those hats at the same time. Like, yeah, I'm talking about this, and I don't know how much time we'll have, but he talks about the numbers of people killed in Auschwitz. He talks about the Jewish control over American government. But I'm just a comedian, so don't go after me because I'm not accountable for anything I say. I mean, Michael, do you use that ever?
Really?
Do you ever do that? Like, because I know you're like you are a doctor, right? Do you ever like at the board meeting just say, well, I'm just a doctor. I'm not actually doing anything at this company. I'm
if I say something stupid about the financials, I pretend I'm not fine. Obviously that would be grounds to kick me off the board. No, this is complete and utter crap. And Pierce called him on it, thankfully. I'm just a comedian. I'm spewing hatred. And I want to have more and more followers, but this hatred is only in the context of comedy. It's great. I'm sure Hitler could have used somebody in his entourage who could have done that, work with Goebbels and the like. So it's obviously bullshit. And clearly the people who watch this stuff or believe any of it are just despicable, stupid people. One last point to make though, so we can all remember, it's very interesting what happened in the world of anti-Semitism as Israel and all things Jewish are hateful and, boycott, divest, and sanction Israel, BDS movements take on at all of our idiot colleges, which, by the way, none of the colleges are supporting the Iranian people. Of course, you notice how good these students are, but not for the Iranians. Anyway, the Israeli stock market had the best performance of any Western stock market last year. The dollar is at its low against the shekel at this moment. The flourishing that is going on in Israel, despite or because of all of this crap, is astonishing. And it's very interesting that, and I've talked to a number of people that are involved in innovative science and technology and so on. They more and more want to work with the Israelis because they watch the news and what happens, and the fact that Israel is surrounded by Iranian proxies and was attacked with missiles, et cetera, et cetera. They watch the news and they have a different take. These people are astonishing. They're resilient. They aren't going to take this. They're not sitting down. They destroyed Hezbollah. They basically neutered Iran, and unfortunately Trump stopped them again from finishing the job, and he did a miserable rest of it, and he's doing a miserable rest of it. The bottom line is Israel is flourishing. So while all this crap is going on, we have an excellent stock market, an excellent technology industries, and so on. It's just good to remember that the victims here are not lying down.
Yeah, I'm wondering, by the way, but Michael, you brought up, I'm wondering if Goebbels ever tried that. Yeah, I'm just a director. I just make movies. What do you? I don't think the defense would stand up at the Nurembergs. But yeah, Jonathan.
I mean, that's why I think, Dr. Peikoff has a line I remember from one of his podcasts where he says, "The arbitrary has no standing." And what Bassam Youssef says, these are totally arbitrary claims with no relation to reality, and they're not even wrong. They just shouldn't even be considered as well at all. And that's how I think you should look at Bassam Youssef, as someone simply to be absolutely ignored. And he's telling you to his face that, as you said, I'm just a comedian, I'm just a prankster. Don't take anything I'm saying seriously. Well, not difficult for me to do, and others shouldn't as either.
This is just a shield he's using against any proper demand of him to be somewhat objective. It's just so easy to just say whatever lies and whatever blood libels you want to say, and then whenever you are held accountable to what you say, you say, "Oh, I'm just a clown." Well, he is a clown, but he's not a clown, in the circus performing acts. He's a clown from a horror film coming to murder you. Of course, not like figuratively speaking, of course, in the terms of philosophy, in the terms of ideas, in the term of basically promoting lies and hatred, basically hatred for the good, for being good, is basically a nihilistic clown coming to infect people's minds and reinforce the sickest and most perverted people into being even more horrible version of themselves. So yeah, he's a very bad clown.
Daniel, I'll quickly mention and appreciate a shout out to Shazbot for a very generous contribution. We need more. We need some super chats here. We're here 7 days a week with original programming inspired by Miss Ayn Rand's objectivism. We are all students of objectivism, just like you, and we lead discussion groups, but every day we're here with original programming. So please hit us up on the super chat, or Daniel will post the link. Become a regular contributor to keep this enterprise going and growing through 2026.
And let's take a look at one more clip that I have, and it's this one.
There's a lot of Americans.
And there's a lot of other Americans.
I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I see them losing right now because they're reacting like an animal backed into a corner. And I'm not saying it's not going to get worse first.
Okay, here's the thing. You have 98% of Congress and the Senate.
That's just a bunch of...
Yeah, but those bunch of... They are the one who writing the laws. They are the one who write a law that says that they can take $28 billion or $30 billion from your tax money and give it to a different country. So those people, they're
stealing.
Yeah, they're stealing, but they are all bought by those lobbies. So what I'm saying is, if you buy enough people to control the government, you can buy enough people to turn the government to do something that the people here doesn't want. Because there's a huge separation now between the political and the media elite and the rest of the people. Thousands of people marching, but up there, the money is going somewhere else. And I'm just saying that it's not that far.
I'm optimistic. I know it sounds crazy. It probably doesn't sound crazy. I think in the end, God wins. I think they were clever. They've done a lot of stuff in the dark. They've kind of
Which God will win?
But the awareness,
Which God will win?
The God is going to win, and I do think part of it was the awareness. They needed the spell. Like, Bibi believed, we've got power, we've got politicians, we got this, we've got the, we could take the guns, we can move all this, we can traffic children. Nobody blinks an eye. We got Epstein out.
When did Netanyahu say we can traffic children? That's I must have missed that press conference. But again, what they talk about? Well, first they talk about other Americans. Haha, funny, right? We just find different words for Jews. Then he talks about Congress is controlling again that Congress is being controlled by Israel. That is what they're saying, right? Or by the Jews specifically. Which again, I would just say, I looked up the numbers. In the last midterms, the campaign spending from January 2023 to December 2025 was about $2 billion for the presidential campaigns, $3.8 billion for Congress, $2.7 by specific parties, $15.7 by PACs, and $4.4 billion by outside money, meaning like super PACs. So in total, we're talking about let's say 25 billion. That is all that is to take control over America. Can't they crowdfund it? Can't they take control of America if that's what it takes? Like 25 billion sounds like a lot, but if we're talking about taking control of American government for 25 billion, that's a steal. Why can't they do that? Why can't Candace and Bassam Youssef, put in together and put in the money towards that? Because of course they are lying, because American government generally does what its people want. Israel or America has been supportive of Israel for most of its existence because that's what Americans generally wanted. Trump was elected not only on the Israel issue, but still, when it comes to he was voted in. That was one of the important issues that was there. Biden was also elected, and later on, even Biden's policy on Israel was supported, which was bad in some instances, but was still sort of broadly, very broadly, we could say, in favor of Israel, meaning not wanting a complete destruction of Israel. So that's what the American people want. So what is he really saying it? And as I always say, a country that lets itself be controlled by, 12 million people in Israel, or let's say however many Jews are around the world, that's a not country worth defending. It's like, if you get taken over like that easily, you deserve what's coming to you. But of course, it's not true in any way. But I mean, Michael, any thoughts on, again, this another trope of American government is controlled by
I think the logical question would be if there's say, call it, I don't know, 12 million, maybe 15 million Jewish Israeli associated people in the world, why are the billions of Muslims not taking over America directly? I mean, there are literally 100 times or more Muslims than there are Jews, and the wealth in just the oil producing Muslim nations is absurd, countless even now. It's such a ridiculous comment that it doesn't even really deserve any response, because I do believe that people that follow these folks they're lost. And it's unclear to me how you re-educate folks or educate them for the first time to understand that that's not how things go.
It sounded to me like they were making some argument that somehow money meant for Americans is being diverted from America to Israel, that, America's relationship with Israel is costing Americans, and, that blame Israel psychology seems to be there. Michael makes really just a great point that Israel is not only the only free country in the entire Middle East, but it is such a dynamic economy from which the U.S. benefits. I mean, this is going back to the USB drive, and so much technology, the Waze application on your phone, I mean, is developed in Israel, for which everyday Americans are huge beneficiaries of. So, Candace and Yusuf are just dealing in old tired tropes that, Jews are stealing your money and that's why you're poor.
Yeah, and I mean, just again, when it comes to like he says, like stealing from Americans, which to some degree, I would agree that America shouldn't necessarily spend money on Israel, but even that's a bit more complicated than I say it is. But do you guys remember when a bunch of Jews came into FDR's like government to like force him to put in the Social Security Act, which is one of the biggest expenses of the U.S. government, right? Like, what is he talking about? Like American money is being stolen specifically just for this issue. Like there's no other taxes for no other thing. But yeah.
Well, he should take a look at the American aid for Egypt.
Which, by the way, is his nationality.
Like
Bassam Youssef is
billions of dollars basically arming up Egypt. So.
And I think if you calculate it per year, I think Egypt has actually gotten more aid per year than Israel did, because the Israeli aid started much sooner than the Egyptian aid that came in much later.
And by the way, I think Israel should not receive any financial aid from the United States. I think it's bad. It's bad for Israel's independence, and it enforces those anti-Semitic tropes. I think it's better off without it.
Yeah, and we should say Israel at this point doesn't actually receive any financial aid in its proper sense. It's only military aid, which even then means it's simply coupons for Israel to buy American products, and then
and also when Israel develops some sort of like products, for example, Iron Dome, these aids come with terms that not allows Israel like to sell this technology freely or to profit out of it, even though the vast majority of the developing process was made by Israeli scientists and researchers.
But again, that's reality coming in, in conflict with their feelings. Michael, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I think for all of us, I think most people who are watching this show agree that at the end of the day, it's reason, purpose, and self-esteem that are the key foundational aspects of any good life. And blame, envy, disgust, faking stuff, selective facts, none of that is going to lead to anybody's flourishing. If people want to fail, I say let them fail. If they honestly, let them fail on their own, but get the hell out of my way and don't interfere with my life. And I think that that's the way you live a good life. Do the best thing you can for you and your family, and things will work out. What they're espousing on these shows is despicable and will lead to complete failure, as we've seen in many countries in the world.
Yeah, it's important to say, for all those anti-Zionists out there, if Jews didn't exist, your life would still suck. I'm sorry. Like, it's your fault. It's not the Jews' fault. Yeah, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
I'm Yair Reichel. I'm an associate in the Ayn Rand Center Israel. You can find out more about Ayn Rand Center Israel in aynrand.org.il/about. We also have a YouTube channel. You can search for Ayn Rand Center Israel in YouTube and see our live streams and show. There are usually English subtitles as well. And I'm the leader of a movement called Victory Now. We have recently released this book, Victory Now, which shows basically how the Allies fought and won World War II, what have happened since to the Western world and to its moral view, how it can be fixed, how can we adopt a good morality regarding war, regarding achieving the victory of the West and the free societies over the tyrannical regimes. And we basically offer this moral case for Israel, moral case for the Western world, and a plan on how to win over evil in this war that takes so long, because the world has adopted basically an altruistic morality of self-sacrifice for the most horrible kind of tyrannical regimes and evil. So it's time for the good to win over evil.
Jonathan?
Thanks so much. Great to be here, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.